Welcome to the podcast, everybody. Me or you?
Go ahead.
Okay, so quick announcement, D&D update. We are behind the scenes shooting season 2, editing season 1. It's going to be a while, but when we release it, it's going to be week to week to week. So there will be a delay, but just wanted to let you guys who did enjoy the show that it is coming. I'm working very hard on it. And I appreciate all the comments. So thank you guys.
He's on V11.
I'm on V11
of episode 3.
A lot of editing.
Never worked harder in his life. D&D is getting all the sweat, blood, and tears.
Exactly. So this is a random thing that I saw was that right now I have seen burst onto the scene a lot of breath work instructors. And, you know, I'm for the proliferation of breath work and it being out there and being done by people.
Yeah, we often cite it as the right below psychedelics in terms of can be transformational for people.
My concern, as I was like, this upsets me because I was looking at the people that did it and I happen to know some of them. And I know that like 6 months ago, they hadn't heard of breath work and now they are teaching it and you can get 6 free classes before they start charging you. And by classes, I mean like online downloads. And it made me sad because I believe that the average experience of breath work and its impact is likely to decrease as it becomes proliferated by teachers that are... One, they've seen the power of it in their own life. It's like, wow, this works really fast. But of course, like everything, there's a depth to it. And you become better at it, better at helping people with the after effects as time goes on. And I think what is happening, because I was like, where is this coming from? I won't call them out, but there are these businesses, essentially, that are, I think, started nobly to be like, look, there's a lot of people that need help. We want to help coaches get out there and teach them these sorts of things. So we're going to certify people. Yeah. The problem is, and I see this in so many industries and in the internet, is that
everyone gets certified.
Yes.
You can't possibly fail.
So if you pay money and attend, you are certified, which is there's no testing, there's no quality assurance.
Sounds like business school.
It's exactly like business school. We get these copywriters who hit us. I am certified by fill in the name copywriter. Yeah. They write the same template emails. Some of them don't even change your name. Like these are clearly not quality contractors to work with. And the problem for us in business, and I think for other people, is like, you can't tell, there are good copywriters out there. They are drowned out by the volume of certified people who have been instructed to get out there into the workforce and push their subpar product by somebody in the back who is selling pickaxes during a gold rush and making all the money and believes that they're doing a service to the world. They could teach the same business, instruct people, but if you had a barrier to graduation, then it would be valuable. And without it, I think, unfortunately, I feel like this happens in almost every industry. I think it happens, one of the big ones is with therapy, where to be a therapist, it's like you show up, you go to school, you graduate. Do you have to have solved any of your own issues? Absolutely not.
No, a great therapist will change your life positively. A world-class therapist will be an amazing boon for you. But there's a lot of bad therapists and mediocre therapists that will just be a waste of time. So it's tough. You have to really just burn through them until you find the good ones. And
this is the thing. Unfortunately, it either turns people off to therapy because like I tried that, it wasn't that useful, or they do therapy for 10 years with somebody that's not great, sink thousands of dollars, think that they're getting these benefits when really the benefits are basically like having someone listen while you speak. That's the extent of it. And missing opportunities to grow, even though they had that initial spark of like, I should seek out help, which is a bummer. And I don't like it. It makes me sad that these good technologies are, the capitalism gets its hands in there and it's like, how can we extract as much money by encouraging people to do what they love without being good at it?
Yeah. So. Well, if people do want to get into breath work, there is an app that I like that I have used called Othership. That is a paid app. I actually am going to invest in that. I don't yet, but I do want to disclose, like, I'm going to hopefully own a small amount of it, but I like it. I use it. I have used it in the past. If you want a free option to, our friend Evan has a breathwork online. So you can just go to YouTube and go to Evan Berger is the name of the channel, guided breathwork class. We can try to link to that in the description. And he is always showing me people writing in being like, this was so life-changing. Oh my God, this was amazing. This was so powerful. And so that's a totally free breathwork option as well. I like going to breathwork classes if you can,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it really requires being in a major city to go to a place where a good person is going to lead a class of 20 people. There's something tribal about getting in that group and everyone kind of breathing together. But I've also done breathwork alone in my office and had good experiences with it. So for people who are interested and they're like, oh shit, Charlie, I wanted to do holotropic breathwork. Now you're saying everybody's crap. I'd recommend Othership or just Evan's YouTube channel.
Yeah, and it's not that everybody's crap. I think it's a really good technology that is in some ways tough to mess up, but I think that you could get an even better experience with a more thoughtfully recorded recording or a better instructor or an in-person experience with somebody who can guide you.
Oh, I was on board with most of these people are going to be crap. I was buying your hypothesis.
Breathwork is pretty easy to get right. It's like the fundamentals, the 80-20 of breathwork.
Sure.
Take deep breaths for an extended amount of time. It's pretty tough to screw up.
Yeah. If it's anything like copywriting, I just know a lot of certified people are they're going to be very bad.
Yeah.
So I just want to give some resources if people are interested and they want to dodge around all those kind of shady, maybe mediocre breathwork things out there.
Cool. Semi-related. There's a YouTube channel that I watch. We were actually looking right before COVID to get into the video game industry. We were going to go to the GDC, the Game Developers Conference, and like literally just, I know nothing about it, just hang out with people that knew what they were doing. And during that time, I subscribed to a bunch of channels. One guy, Thomas Brush, is an indie developer, and I don't watch all of his videos, but I saw one that grabbed my attention. And he told the story of having made this game. It was a weird game, didn't fit with the zeitgeist of what is selling at the time. It was like a horror shooter based in the Garden of Eden that's been corrupted. It was like weird in his own way. And he was making it, didn't believe in it, shut it down, told his team they were going to move, like, animals are hot right now. Like, let's make a thing where you're a dog. And you're running around, and did that. And said, I believe that he took a gummy. I don't know if it was THC or psilocybin or what. And from like one experience of that, realized that the game that had his fingerprints on it was the one he needed to do.
Yeah.
The reason that he had shut it down, which I had forgotten to mention, was he reached out to one publisher and said, do you like this? And they're like, yeah, this is good, but not for us. And that was enough rejection. Wow. It was like too sensitive. He like did the gummy, got back on, emailed like 20 plus publishers, got back a bunch of them who were like, this is incredible, wanted to fund it. Like now he's got competing publishers and is making the game now, is back in it. But I was just it was remarkable to me, because I think this happens, that he didn't identify what was really happening internally as he shut this game down, was like, oh, this isn't marketable, despite the fact that he reached out to one publisher who didn't say terrible things. And that one experience had, I think, put him back on a path to sharing the art that meant something to him with a broader public. I was like, oh, I fucking love that story. I just really liked it. It made me happy.
Well, it's sad. Yeah, it's sad that someone could put so much work and money and care and time into something and then let one rejection just have them fold up their tent and give up the dream.
Yeah. Well, I think because it was, if the dog thing fails, well, that was a market play. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't time the market. We didn't get the right thing. But if this doesn't do well, like, this is a reflection on me. I care about this. This is my own weirdness that is being judged by the world. And weirdly enough, I don't know if it'll be successful, but I was like, this is how you make smash hits. Like, the first person, there's this big video game that came out called Stray. I don't know if you've seen it. Nope. You play as a cat, you walk around, and most of the intrigue of the game is the real cat physics. Okay. It's like, you like move like a cat, and you leap over things, and now everybody wants to do Stray.
It sounds like your girlfriend would love this game.
Or the Hunger Games. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what we need to do is get a battle royale where all these kids have different powers, and then they come out with Maze Runner and all these other follow-ups that just are
Stardew Valley, right?
Stardew Valley, which was, 20 years after like the last Harvest Moon. He's like, I want a farming simulator. Hasn't seen one of these in forever. Smash hit. It's not to say that everything weird is successful, but it is to say that, I don't know, those are the things that I like to see people doing, want more of, and can often wind up being like awesome movies, games, whatever.
Yeah, well, this was our hypothesis with Charisma on Command, and our hypothesis with D&D is I am probably not going to make the absolute best version of something if I don't care about it and I only care about money. So if you're like, hey, go make the absolute best thing that you don't care about at all, I'll probably just end up doing an okay job. But if you say, hey, go make the absolute best version of this thing that you care deeply about, that feels way more achievable, even if it's a smaller market. Like the D&D is not it's Charisma on Command, D&D. These aren't the plays if you want to be a billionaire.
Yeah, we're not in crypto.
Yeah, there's just other things if you were starting with what are the biggest industries that you would go do. But I do think that we can make an amazing show. And I think we have made a YouTube channel that I'm very proud of, and a business I'm very proud of for Charisma on Command. So I think that's how I orient. I go, where can I smash this relative to what I'm doing? And it's got to be something I care enough about to try really, really hard and care about the quality, you know?
Yeah. To suck for an extended period of time and not quit when you suck. Versus like, I don't know, everybody's got their thing. You're like, I want to be a guitarist. And you're like, this is hard. And you don't want to do it. Or
Yeah.
Like, I think, I'm like, I want to be a jazz guitarist. I'm like, I don't really like jazz. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. So we tried to mirror that, but I was happy to see that somebody else did it as well.
Yeah. Some people are not wired that way. I do want to clarify. Some people just care enough about money and fame that they can put that same energy into anything that they think will achieve those external results. Yeah. So it's definitely possible for someone.
Yeah.
But it's just not how we've done it.
Not me. Totally random. So student, we missed this one by like a day on last week. It was all the news. Student debt forgiveness. I prefer the term reassignment because the idea of loans just being like between friends forgiven, it is not, the person who lent it is not forgiving them. A third party, the rest of the American public that didn't have anything to do, is not being given a choice by executive order, is being reassigned the burden of that debt.
Well, this is I don't know if you want to start here, but that's something I've seen that's interesting in this discourse for student loan forgiveness, is people saying, if you are against this, you just are against other people being happy.
This is literally what I was going to start with.
It's so ridiculous to say, oh, I paid off my student loans, so you should have to. Or, oh, I didn't go to college, so why should their loans be forgiven? Like, don't be a sadist. Just be happy for our happiness. As if the government has infinite money that comes from nowhere, that has no penalty for printing, and they can just choose to solve homelessness, world hunger, student loans, and decide not to because they're malicious politicians. Instead of saying, any program comes at the cost of other programs and comes from the populace. So it's not that people want you to suffer. They're saying, hey, we took $300 billion from the US people via taxes. Is the best way to help our country this particular program compared to every other program. And like that argument is being so brutally strawmanned into, if you don't like this, you just hate suffering and are an asshole, which is so illogical and such a weak, a weak but popular argument that I see.
Well, and to rebut what I think is the counter to what you just said, like, oh, the perfect is the enemy of the good. I'm not even saying you have to find the single best way to deploy $300 billion without wasting a dollar. I'm saying don't subsidize middle-class poor decision-making. Like, there's just other people that I'd rather want to go to based on other criteria.
Even if you want to help the middle class and you think that college is unaffordable and it's creating an unfair environment, which I'm on board with, make a systemic change.
So Biden did say he was going to do that.
Well, this didn't. This first $300 billion
has nothing to do with it.
Didn't do that.
I agree.
This first $300 billion, if it's all they do, we'll have the exact same amount of student loans in about 4 years from what I was reading. So nothing changes. The colleges don't have to adjust. They aren't penalized for this. Other people just keep making the same decision because the incentive structure hasn't changed. And this problem, if you think it is one, to the middle class, which I'm totally on board with saying is a massive problem, has not been alleviated at all and will just recur. So it just seems like even if that's your goal, is to help people that want to go to college, this is not the best way to do it.
Well, I don't know why we would set the goal at help people that want to go to college. I think there's a couple of things. So one, the first thing I wrote is funny that you brought it up. The narrative of like, these dissenters just want people to suffer, I find really aggravating.
Yeah, it's dumb.
And
so dumb.
I'm sure that I've done this, but the total lack of attempt to understand and to characterize it as like they just love suffering for others is so, I don't know. It's like a shameful. It's
well, you know,
a crazy take.
Not every belief is like this, but a lot of religious beliefs, a lot of political beliefs, you start with what you have to believe, which is that guns are good or guns are bad, abortion's good or abortion's bad, there is a God or there isn't a God, and then you try your best to get there. And so some people want their student loans forgiven, and so they're going to try really hard to figure it out. They're not starting from, if I didn't know who I was in this system, but I had control of $300 billion, what would I do with it?
Yeah. So things that I I have a couple. I think first off, Krystal and Saagar have done a couple interesting videos. Saagar's got, I won't repeat everything that he says, but maybe we link it. I can try to find the video that I thought was, his opinion was pretty interesting on it. But as I sit back and just personally think, I was like, what do I want? I heard that they're doing like a California school lunch program for kids where every kid gets access to lunch. I was like, I like that. These 8-year-olds did not choose to be born into a family that couldn't provide them with lunch. You know what I mean? Like, we want, that is a floor that I want to see raised. And those are the types of things that I would like to see supported. Go ahead.
Have you considered that the 8-year-olds should just lift themselves up by their bootstraps like good libertarians?
Like good libertarians. Yes. Yes. And so the question is like, at what point do we go take personal responsibility? For me, it's certainly not the 8-year-old that doesn't have lunch. And I like that sort of collective action to tax people to make sure that 8-year-olds can eat. And all the way through school. There's a lot of different ages in there as well. My problem is with this, which is essentially a bailout of the university system, which makes me very sad because I think that they have successfully, I mean, look at this business model. We are not taxed because we are not-for-profit institutions. We call up people after they've graduated to ask for more money, despite the fact that our costs have risen and the outcome that you get as a result of college has not. But we still have the gall to reach out to you once a year with a freshman student on a telethon drive, shaming you or asking you into giving more money. We take all of that money, we put it into an endowment that we have managed by a hedge fund that just grows it, while the hedge fundies get their 2 and 20 off the backs of it. We also have a social monopoly on the word education after the age 18. This is what hurts me the most. Is like, you want America to fall behind in education? Like, no. We have so many other options, though. There's Code Academy type things. There's the internet writ large. There's writing groups that people join that help them learn how to become better writers and published authors.
Seth Godin's got a business course that people really like.
There are so many better options that are being out-competed by these colleges because of the one social pressure behind, like, college is education, which that narrative won't stop, but these massive subsidies that even when you have an obviously better product that people respond to really well, get a ton of value out of, are happy to refer and recommend, you can't outcompete the government putting its entire weight behind trying to prop up this industry.
Yeah.
And it's not taxed. It's crazy. Like, how many advantages do you need before you are held accountable to produce a product that is economically viable? And so anyway, Saagar's take, which I won't repeat in its whole, a couple of interesting things is that this could also be viewed as a way of Democrats siphoning money to Democrat-producing factories, which I thought was interesting, given that college increases your likelihood of being Democrat by 37%. So I thought that was just a take. And the only one small thing that I wanted to add was I keep hearing this stat that 87% of people that are affected by these loans are making less than $75,000 per year. To which I say, why did we cap it at $125,000?
Yeah.
Like, $125,000 is so much money to pay back your loans. If you're not paying back your loans at $125K, we got to talk.
Well, we've talked about this. People, a lot of people, they want to not have to make sacrifices in their lifestyle in order to pay back things like their student loans. So that's like, oh, I have $125,000 a year salary, but I have such high rent because I want to live in the middle of Soho in New York. And you go, well, maybe until you pay back your rent, you don't get to.
Yeah.
You have to live not in Soho. You still get to live in Manhattan, just not in the exact place, in the exact building that you want. Or maybe you get to do that, but you need a roommate.
Yeah.
And people don't want to do that. They think that's unfair and they should get to live where they want in the nicest place that they want. And they can't do that with $125,000 a year and pay their student loans.
Yeah.
So bail them out.
Yeah. But I was just like, look, if the stat you're going to give me that you think I care about is people under 75K, set it at 75K.
Yeah.
Like, please, this extra 13 is just wild to me.
Well, Biden's approval rate has peaked. It's the highest it's been in a year.
Yeah.
So
well,
it worked.
Yeah.
That's what he was trying to do. You know, he wasn't really trying to do allocate the money the most efficiently.
Sure. And then the last,
trying to get those midterms going.
Absolutely. I think that's the best read on it, not more than siphoning money to Democrat producing factories. Just this is a politically shrewd move. But then the last thing that I hear is like I see at least online these comparisons to PPP or prior bailouts, and I think that while instructive, they are not really fair. Basically, my zoomed out understanding is that when we had the TARP stuff for bailing out banks, et cetera, I believe they were required to pay that back, or the auto industry. And if they weren't, I don't stand behind it.
Yeah, I don't remember. But I've also said on the podcast, I think it's pretty wild that we keep bailing out the airline
I
industries.
agree.
And we
I
should
agree.
just stop and say, hey, you guys should pay less dividends and keep some cash on hand.
Yes.
Because you're not getting bailed out.
Yes.
Because, by the way, we don't need to bail you out to have flights. I'll just let you go bankrupt, sell your planes at a penny on the dollar to a different company that will open up a new airline and fly all your routes.
Yeah.
So the idea that we need to bail out certain companies to keep the industry going is not true.
Yeah.
So I'm down to just make an announcement that says some of these industries that always get bailed out, hey, we're going to stop. So just expect your stock price to go down because we're going to stop taking taxpayer money to bail you out that you just dividend out to the people that buy your stock and start keeping cash on hand because the bailouts aren't coming. So yeah, I'm down with a lot of the criticism for other bailouts. I just don't know that do we want to justify future behavior by pointing to past bad behavior? I don't know that that's the precedent setting we want.
I think that's the better point that I should have been making a moment ago is, it's this is how you get cultures of cheating and bribery. And not to say that we don't already have that, but when it's, hey, the system is already corrupt, so I'm an idiot if I don't dip my hand in the pot, that's not a community that you feel safe contributing to the pot in. I'm going to contribute via my tax dollars, and either a bank, an airline, or a college student, or a whole bunch of college students is going to make poor decisions and then be rescued from the consequences of those decisions is frustrating.
Well, banks is tough. I think a lot of the reason they got bailed out is because they have all of our money.
Yeah.
So if you don't, you may hurt a lot of your populace. I think there's cleaner ones. But you could say something like, hey, we're going to bail you out. By the way, a government bailout means that your CEO loses his golden parachute.
Absolutely,
so if you run a business like a bank that goes bankrupt and you're supposed to get $50 million severance, but you accept bailout money, you get no severance.
And clawbacks, clawbacks are some sort of thing. And again, I don't know the exact how the incentive structure would mean to be changed, but to investigate it. And certainly what has happened is you have, in every one of these cases, you have privatized gains from the students who went to college and publicized losses, like other people pay for it. Any rational actor in the Adam Smith sense is going to take that deal, especially when everyone around him is like, look, if you don't get in there, there's going to be nothing left in the pot for you to remove from. So yeah, it feels, I think I was not as evolved in earning money during the first bailouts. I probably would have been furious if I had been, but I was still, accumulating my student debt at that point in time.
Yeah, I think, and like I said, I think a lot of them, you could say, I understand the need for it today, but we need to make massive changes to CEO payout if you get a bailout, airlines and what they get to keep on cash, or if we just do fire sales if you guys go bankrupt. Like there's better ways than we've done. But yeah, I think my highest level thing would just be for people who think these are a good idea to not think that if you don't think these are a good idea, you're a monster, and instead try to understand the argument.
Well, I'll give you one. If you told me that we were sending $300 billion to charities around the world to help people in the most need, it wasn't going to help a single American, I would support that more, as long as it was distributed on the basis of need unrelated to we're incentivizing a certain behavior that is not good. Like, you don't have access to water. What behavior caused that? I don't know. You were born in the wrong place. Like, cool. Like, we want support there.
Sure. Or if people say, well, since it's tax money paid by the U.S. citizens, we demand it help the U.S. people. You brought up a great one, which is how about little kids that can't afford food? That seems like a pretty solid thing. I can't think of
everything related to little
reason
kids
that they shouldn't be receiving my tax money in order to be able to eat every day. It seems very reasonable.
And to add a complicating factor, that what you get are adults that then play the game of when you incentivize people to take foster kids, then you have some families which are taking a bunch of foster kids in order to get the government money. So you will have problems and leaky buckets in anything. But this one seems structured to subsidize poor decision-making in the past and to encourage it in the future, which is to say people going to colleges for degrees that train them to do nothing that anyone in the world wants or cares about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the I think a great solution would be to make the loans less guaranteed in some way, closer to other loans, such that the banks had to actually assess if this was a good investment or if they were likely to not get paid back. And so then people would not get loans depending on their major or their GPA. And you might think, well, that means they can't go to college. I actually think that would depress college prices. I think colleges would not be able to charge so much money. And some would. Harvard, Wharton Business School, their prices wouldn't drop. Their students would still get the loans, but those people probably aren't suffering if they went to those universities, unless they got a degree that doesn't help them get a job. But if they did, then maybe they shouldn't get the big loans. And if they didn't, then Harvard and Wharton might charge different rates for different degrees.
Isn't it crazy that they're not taxed? Isn't it crazy? Sorry. I'm just like going, they have this massive business model. They're doing, oh my God. Anyways.
Yeah, I don't know. And I actually, as I'm thinking about it, I don't know that that's unfair to say, oh, if you go to Harvard as an econ major, you have to pay 40 grand. But if you go to Harvard and you're this major where people don't really get jobs after, you only have to pay 5 grand. You're saying, well, that's not fair. They're at the same college. Yeah, but that's like saying all cars should be the same price. Like you pay for the features of the car or the brand or whatever it is you like about it. That's why we have Rolexes and Timexes. And
or
so,
even, degrees, makes of BMW. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so I don't think that'd be unreasonable. And I think you'd still see just as many people excited to go get the econ degree that gets them the $200,000 job right out of college. But you wouldn't have crippling student loans on the other programs because the other programs wouldn't be able to charge as much.
One thing that I want to add to that is I am a huge believer in liberal arts education. I am just not a believer that you need a college for that and that you need to pay the exorbitant prices. I think poetry, English, that's what I did. I love that stuff. I want people to be out there writing, creating music, all that stuff. You just do not need to spend these exorbitant prices in order to get training and to become professionally interesting to the world in any of those things. So yeah, I'm not trying to make a world filled of engineers and econ majors at all. I just want the colleges to go away. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Cool.
I have one other thing.
Okay.
And then, cool. Andrew Tate's final message after being removed from social media.
I haven't seen it.
I watched probably 35 minutes. It's long, he is repetitive. But what I thought was most interesting to me in those first 35, we've already talked about. Basically, I don't think he should have been deplatformed like that. But that is too. I think that these social media platforms ought to have the right individually, but it disturbs me when they act collectively in order to just remove people's voice from the public sphere. You think it sounds like that they are platforms and ought to be accountable to either to present themselves as publishers and have editorial control, but also be liable to lawsuits, or be platforms and have much less control over who gets to say what on them. And therefore,
and I think you can make a different thing that's for social media companies that's maybe less strict than platforms. My biggest thing is I see us slipping from dangers to society to person I disagree with.
Yeah.
And I think that precedent is dangerous when all of a sudden people that you like, that you think have important ideas, are getting removed. And so I don't agree with what Andrew Tate says, but I think that the idea that let's say someone's out there amassing a giant audience, demanding violent action against a certain group, that people bomb buildings. We want that person removed from every platform. We want every platform to do it at the same time. So that we're like, yeah, sure, at some point, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, get this guy out of here. Where do you draw that line? And I just see it creeping, and I worry it's a little bit like when a president does executive orders and everybody who supports that president loves it, until the next president gets in and does the same amount of executive orders that are for the other political party. Yeah. All the people that supported the first president now hate it and say, you have to go through Congress. This is an overreach. It's like, well, I didn't hear you saying this when your guy was doing it. Yeah. And so that's what I mostly see is, okay, what if the next people that raise up start removing people that you think have very important things to say? And if you think that Trump is stealing nuclear documents, what if all these people started getting deplatformed who were saying that, and the only people that were allowed on the platform were people who said that he was being wrongfully pursued by the FBI? And if you feel the opposite, just reverse that. You wouldn't like it. So I think we just have to be careful what precedent we set, pretending we don't know if we like or dislike the outcome.
Sure.
That's where I land. And I see a lot of people being very outcome focused
This
on if
gets
they
rid of the guy that I
approve
wanted gone. Yeah.
the behavior.
Yeah.
And I just think that's dangerous because you can't guarantee. You've now set the precedent that it's okay, and you can't guarantee
That it won't be
that
used
you'll like
against
the
you.
outcome in the future. So I think you have to go, do I want this applied when I like it and when I don't like it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can say yes, then it's a good behavior that you can approve. And if you're not, then I think it's important to be like, okay, even though I like this outcome, we shouldn't do this because I might dislike the fallout of this even more than I like this current happenstance outcome.
Yeah. I think what happens in those, in people's attempt to be principled, is that they either are hysterically emotional or they are bad faith, and they make the claim that Andrew Tate is dangerous to society. And so they go, I want us only to remove, I don't want you to remove people I disagree with. I only want you to remove societal dangers, like that terrorist threatening to explode everything and Andrew Tate, who fit the same category.
Yeah. And I think that's fine. I think you should define what dangerous is and then just get prepared for when somebody so let's say you don't like Andrew Tate, you're probably liberal and you're very, forward-leaning in your progressive beliefs or whatever. What happens when someone decides, like there's a guy who was running for public office who thinks that being gay is a sin. Mm-hmm. What happens when he thinks that anybody that makes it okay to be homosexual because they are homosexual and they talk about it as if it's okay is a danger to society? And so they just start banning every big LGBT person on these platforms. Are you comfortable with how danger is getting defined? Mm-hmm. So that's my only question. If you want to say that Andrew Tate's dangerous, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to ask you to define dangerous. And then apply it, assuming someone that held evenly. Different beliefs got to use the same definition, and see if you're comfortable with the outcome. Mm-hmm. And if you are, great. Everyone gets executive orders. Obama got a bunch, Trump got a bunch. Now Biden gets the student debt one. And if Republican wins after Biden, he'll do the equivalent of. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like with the Supreme Court, when people liked that they were legislating from the bench. We don't have to worry about Congress to legalize gay marriage or to legalize abortion. We got Roe v. Wade, and then it splits. So they remove Roe v. Wade, and now people are furious. And it's like, you should have been pushing for Congress to do this even when you liked the outcome. Yeah. Because this was the precedent that got set, was that the Supreme Court gets to decide if abortion is legal or not nationwide. Mm-hmm. And so, that's my whole view on YouTube. It's like, okay, we're 6-3 Democrat right now in the Supreme Court and you like it. When we're 6-3 Republican, are you going to like how much power we've given the Supreme Court? Mm-hmm. You like these platforms so you don't like Andrew Tate. Are you going to like it when they are hunting down all the people that have beliefs that they think are equivalently dangerous from their point of view because they're defining danger? Mm-hmm. And if you're cool with it, then great, cool.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I think it's a very good way of approaching it. I see the ease with which they even skirt that and just get funny with the defining of danger such that it is their definite. You know what I mean?
Well, unfortunately, their mental dishonesty is not going to protect them. Yeah. Because when the Supreme Court does switch to 6-3 the other side, it's going to do it. And when Trump comes into office, he's going to do the executive orders. And when Biden comes into office, he's going to do the executive orders. So being cute with your math with your language might help you when you're arguing online,
at the dinner table.
But it's not actually going to protect you when the tables turn.
Sure.
So it's
for you. It's for you.
It's not really going to help you. In fact, you're going to be blindsided when it happens because you thought you had this figured out because you were trying to win the argument at the dinner table instead of.
Fair point. Yes, Andrew Tate. So his final message, I mentioned this to you, but I would just bring it up. It was a very sad introduction that I don't think he was aware of. He basically just laid out a core trauma of his life without really acknowledging it and citing it as a point of strength, which I think it has been for him as well. But the story that he tells us, he was picked on as a kid. He's on the school bus. These kids pick on him. He goes home, he tells his dad, and his dad says, nobody's going to protect you. Bus driver ain't going to protect you. I'm not going to protect you. Teacher's not going to protect you. You got to figure it out. And he's, I think, growing up in south side of Chicago. It's not a great area. And that might be true in that circumstance. So they pick on him. One day, he takes his metal lunchbox and cracks a kid in the face. Blood everywhere. Bus screeches to a halt. He runs off the bus and, according to him, runs home faster than he's ever run in his entire life. Gets home. His dad sees him. He's panicked. He's got blood on his lunchbox. Without speaking a word about it, his story, his dad takes him to Walmart, buys him a Lulu lunchbox and says, I will buy you as many of these as you need. Mm. And it's like, oh, I get it. I see your view of the world. And what he took from that is you never go to authority when you have a problem. You have to solve things on your own in a violent way. Mm-hmm. The world is dangerous and people will not look out for you. And he didn't seem reflective on the fact that, like, bro, you're a multi-millionaire. You are no longer in the south side of Chicago. The rules that may have helped you survive then that were imposed on you by your environment and by your dad, like that, he could have taken a different approach, which might have had better outcomes.
Yeah, but maybe not. Maybe that not. Really is how you have to survive that situation.
Maybe that's the only way to do it there. Yeah. You're no longer in that world. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everybody does this. The rules that they made as kids, the lessons that their parents taught them that got them through things and that they think are like the way the world works, become impediments later in life. And he is not in that situation anymore where, like, I just can imagine what that does to a kid. You can't trust fucking anyone to help you look out for you. You can't ever break down. You must be mentally strong at all times. And he's like, I have mental strength. Things do not bother me. It's like, oh, cool. Like, you're the one. You're the human that doesn't get bothered by things. Like, I got it. You've built an incredible repression tool, which was totally fucking necessary for the environment that you were in. And you did such a good job that you're not even inclined to self-reflect on that and see, like, did I really kill all of those emotions and deal with them, or did I just manage to deeply, deeply bury them? And my opinion, I think, is obvious by the way I'm talking about it.
Yeah. No, and I think it's interesting to just reflect on the fact that that's, to some degree, that's true for everybody.
Yeah. But also, like, and I think it's funny because I did do it, probably still do it. He did it. The stories that we tell, like our founding myths of the way that we are, which we like support us and like it helps us get through life. Just viewing it from an outside perspective is like, oh my God, man, I'm so fucking sorry. You had to crack that guy in the face, and then your dad didn't even really speak to you about it. It was just an acknowledged, like, I support the violence that you need to survive. I'm sorry that was how you had to grow up. It's just fucking sad, man. I don't know. And I didn't grow up in the south side of Chicago, and I didn't have to do that. And I could be hurt and not have that be the end of times. Not to a full degree, because I was still born in the 90s and had a typical upbringing. But yeah, it's just sad. That was what I thought when watching it. And he didn't seem to know. So
yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. I do think some people will listen to this and tell you that you overvalue how impactful childhood is. But
yeah.
That's just a thing I've seen. They go, the idea that you think that our childhoods shape us is just a crazy assumption. And I've seen people comment that, so expect that.
I got over that when I was like 16.
Agree to disagree on that.
Yeah. No, strong agree to disagree. And if I had to prove it to you, I'd be like, extend yourself, do like 4 guided MDMA sessions with a therapist. And if at the end of that
you find legally,
in a few years, when it is legal, if at the end of that you still think like you think, I will still not believe you, but I will back off the argument entirely, because I'm pretty much certain that if Andrew Tate did 4 MDMAs, he'd see some shit. So,
but you have to do it in the right session, because going to Burning Man and doing it won't necessarily have you reflect on your childhood. It may just have you reflect on how beautiful the art is.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Yeah. What you got?
I have a weird one. I didn't know this. 65% of cancer survivors surveyed by War on Cancer said that they had been ghosted by friends or family after their diagnosis, which I found super surprising. But I guess in the US, people are so scared of death, and death is such a foreign thing. And we've talked about this before. In the past, in history, you just see people die, and that was more part of life. We're so scared of it now. People said that they would get diagnosed with cancer, and friends would stop hanging out with them because they didn't want to see them deteriorate because it reminded them of their own mortality. And so they would just cut these people when they needed a support network the most. And that made me really sad. You'd think that that's when your friends and family are most important to you would think. And yeah, 65% of people said they just
somebody goes
bounced. Yeah,
man. Yeah, I'm not surprised now that you say it that it's that high. It makes sense, And the good news is it's not every person in their life, but it is some people.
For a lot of people, it was a lot of people.
Really?
It's not, it wasn't like a rare thing. They said some people said it was one of the hardest aspects was that they come out the other side cancer free and just go,
I got nobody left. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody bailed on me.
Wow.
And then they want to come back and say, oh my God, I'm sorry.
God.
And they go, you kind of bailed on me in my most important time when I needed you. I don't feel the love for you anymore. So it's just, it's just interesting. And I was very surprised by that. I understand the psychology that gets people there, but
well, it's hard. It becomes everybody's tragedy. It's like the closer that person is to you, like, oh, now this is a defining aspect of my life, and it feels escapable if you can just cut that person out. I can just not hang out with them and not have my life be tragic in the next 6 to 12 months, or I can be in the hospital, and you know what I mean, and that's painful. Fucking sucks.
Yeah, it's just surprised. I didn't really have a takeaway. Just thought that was an unexpected, very common human reaction. I'm sure people listening to this have their own versions of like, mine wasn't cancer, but mine was when I went bankrupt, or mine was when I, had this other thing. And yeah, it's a bummer. So you hope your friends and family are there when you need them and for the good times.
Yeah. Apparently men, in terms of husband and wife, I've read briefly, are more likely to do that than women are. Like it's the men that bail when there's a...
Dip out when it's tough?
Yeah.
Interesting.
On average. But cool.
Comforting as a heterosexual man. And then another random one. So modern dads spend 3 times as much time with their kids as men 2 generations ago. So that's pretty neat.
Wow.
Back in 1982, this is another random one. 43% of fathers said they'd never change a diaper, and that's down to 3%. And I'm sure the manosphere is very upset about that.
I'll be the 3%.
But I think that's probably pretty good for kids, regardless of what you think about the male-female dynamics of it. And maybe you're red pill and you think that's the downfall of masculinity or whatever. But I think for a kid to be able to spend time with his dad
is good.
That's very good.
Well, yeah, he could be conservative, traditional guy, and time is time,
Yes.
That's great.
Well, yeah, they're saying like, changing diapers. I think there's probably some corners of the internet where people be like, that's a sign that the society has gone bad. But I don't know. I read this and I went, this is great. Kids get to spend more time with their dads. Dads are more involved. I think that's probably better for the mental health of the babies of the generations that are to come. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah. 100%. I agree.
Cool. That's it. That's all I got. One sad one, one happy one.
Nice.
Justin, what do we got?
We got a question. Do you guys feel like you two are in an echo chamber? And if you do you mind that, and why?
Yes, I feel like I'm in an echo chamber. I do not know anybody who says the things that I read on Reddit. Everybody around me thinks a lot of the things that I think, and the exceptions that we have can seem big, but in the scope of human opinion are relatively small. So do I think that's good or bad? I think it is, to a degree, inevitable. I think no matter where you suit, it is pleasant to spend time with people who share your values. And I don't think that, I think that's just a fact of nature. And I noticed the other thing is I've tried to connect with some people. Like, I'm okay with the difference in value. There's people, a big one is I do not value business growth that much. But I have tried to connect with people that do, because I'm like, I care about business. I find it a fun, interesting things, and I can learn from you, and I feel like I could share with you some personal growth. And those people have no interest in hanging out with me after the first meeting where they uncover and learn that I am not going to be a force that drives them towards more and more money.
Yeah, and they're not wrong. Their
totally
number one
right.
goal is wealth accumulation as fast as possible, as much as possible, right? I want to get $100 million ASAP. Spending time with you, they sense, may convince them that that's a bad goal.
Yeah.
That 50 million would be plenty, and maybe they should look into why they need the next 50 million. And they sense it and they go, I don't want this. This guy's going to hold me back. Even if it's, going to make them happier and more fulfilled, they will, because of their current structure of their beliefs, they will flee from that relationship. So, I think it's people can be an echo chamber because you're censoring people out, or because people are running for the hills to not get, dragged into the more, spiritual or therapeutic stuff that we like.
And it's also, so I mean, I bring that one up because I've seen that one over and over. I was like, dude, what is happening? And then I was like, oh, there's a pattern here. So that's one that I can point to. But like, just think of how I spend my time. If I were to spend my time in church, or, you know, I would meet people of different opinions. But if Sunday between the hours of 9 and noon, I'm not at church, it's tougher for me to connect with a whole bunch of Christians who think very differently than I do. If they bring up their beliefs at dinner and I engage in a discussion about how I don't believe, they don't want to spend time with me, even though that's something that I actually enjoy that tension.
Well, also for my close relationships, at least, where we disagree and we bring it up and no one changes their mind, especially about politics, often we'll just be like, this isn't really worth talking about because no one is. So it's not an echo chamber, but it's not something that's discussed every day because no one is changing, growing, improving. You know, it's just two people talking at each other. And so it ends up being, we're a close relationship, but we don't do this battle every time. I try to be a flip-flopper. I'm pretty down. I've changed a lot of my beliefs over the years, but I think a lot of people feel like their political beliefs or religious beliefs are part of their identity in a way where I have felt like other things are part of my identity. And I'm sure I'm very protective of those things.
Yeah.
But if you don't think it's part of your identity, you don't think it's death to change your mind. And if you do think it's part of your identity, then you will never change your mind. And so I've switched political beliefs. I've gone from religious to agnostic to atheist to spiritual. Like, I'm just down for that. But I think a lot of people are not. And so they fight very hard to not have conversations that might change their mind in the areas that they feel are core to them. But it also helps you not be in an echo chamber if you're willing to change your mind. Because if somebody does have a better argument than me, I'll just switch. So I just go, all right, sure.
Not even but. Somebody who has a very different opinion of you might be someone who thinks that words constitute violence and that you're disagreeing with someone is an erasure of their experience. So like, yeah, you can disagree from the content, but you have this fundamental value, which is like, I believe that through dialogue, two people can not attack each other and arrive at a more true understanding of the world. And somebody else's dialogue is, or understanding is, words are mechanisms of power that only serve the ruling white male patriarchy. And if you're talking, you're erasing the other person's experience.
That's tougher. I do need to have an exchange of words.
Yeah. Well, that's there are tons of those people. There's a lot of them. So I actually, as I'm thinking through this question, I think that echo chambers are impossible to not want to create. You want to be around people that have shared understanding so that you may move forward in the world rather than colliding at like, oh, I think we can dialogue and you think I can't. We can't go anywhere with this total lack of understanding. And so, yeah, how do you deal with that? I think you try to you build the habit of like steel manning other people's arguments. I do think that I understand some people are closed off to them, but like psychedelics do really open your mind to different perspectives and will help you change. So that for me is one way that I try to stay like receptive to different sorts of things. Yeah, but what do you do? How do you deal with the fact that inevitably your friends will 99% of the time share your corest values and you might not be right about some of those core values?
I think if I had to guess, I think doing work to disentangle your beliefs from your identity is the best thing you could do. It's being like, I'm Ben Altman, and I can be Republican, I can be Democrat, I can be pro-guns, I can be anti-guns, I can be monogamous, I can be open, polyamorous, but like, I'm always Ben Altman. I think when you start to think of like, I'm Ben Altman, the political party, theist, atheist, who does this, and you know what I mean, then it's going to be just way, you've attached yourself to more things you're unwilling to bend on or change on. And so I think that's
a good
probably
point.
The best thing you could do if you want to be someone who isn't trapping yourself in an echo chamber is release these beliefs from being the core aspects of who you are and how you identify yourself. Because otherwise you have to suffer ego death every time you change your mind on a big issue.
Which is death. So you don't want to do that. No, I think even you're totally fine. But like, the way that you hold it is like, I am Ben Altman. Like there is a person, I exist in this world. And like other people are like, I am. And so there's going to be some bumps when you interact with a person like that, because they're going to be way more ethereal, woo-woo, and you're going to be like, yeah, but here we are.
Yeah.
And so what you're pointing at is a process of like investigating who you are. What is my identity? Who am I? Is a fundamental question that I think leaves you open, if you get it increasingly right, to taking in alternate opinions and revising your beliefs about reality. I like it.
Yeah. I also think another thing that's been helpful for me is I don't know how to describe it except for exposing yourself to other beliefs, but like traveling was very helpful.
Yeah, traveling was huge.
You know, because I would really bought into the U.S. I don't want to say propaganda, but like the U.S. lesson of we're number one and we're the good guys and our wars are just. And if we're fighting someone, they're the bad guy. And I was like, this makes total sense to me. I'm 6, now I'm 7, now I'm 16. This all checks out. Everyone around me agrees. So yeah, it was only through going abroad that I was even open to, like, eventually I read the Economic Hitman book and started to get aware of some of the things we'd done in South America. But I think this first step had to be going to South America and caring about it and talking to people. And then I was open to like, oh, we're screwing these people. And they are people to me. They're not vague. You know, if I'd never, like, when have I ever met a Costa Rican or a Brazilian until I've been there? It's like a stick figure in terms of how detailed they are in my mind.
Yeah.
So I think traveling was very helpful. And I think that's a lot of people's who are deeply theists. You know, they often don't challenge that idea that much in high school. Maybe they have some doubts, but then they get to college and they meet other people who aren't from their religious community. And that's when they go, oh, I am open to deeply exploring this now.
I like it. Exposure.
All right, Patreon.
Let's do it. What do we got today?
We're going to talk about if MDMA therapy could lead to more wars.
Okay.
Why psychopathic villains are idolized, and then we're going to help with some emotional mastery and trigger meditation.
Nice.
Cool.
All right.
It's good stuff.
You guys want to check it out? $3. Well, we should eventually raise it to $5. Everybody we can grandfather in, but $3 is a weird amount. Whatever the dollar amount that you click right now gets you access to this Patreon, all of the others, keeps the podcast going. It's a primary source of income. It all goes to Justin. We don't take any out. And it lets us keep doing this. So
you can join the Patreon with the link in the description below.
And we hope you do. It means a lot. All right, guys. We'll catch you later. Peace.